Hello, welcome to the Mobilian channel. In this video, we will disassemble the BBS02 mid-drive motor to investigate the cause of the malfunction. For detailed repair instructions, please watch BBS HD Repair and Maintenance Guide Part 1 and Part 2. Start by removing the 6 chainring bolts. Detach the motor cover bolts. After removing the motor cover bolts, open the crank axle cover. Depending on the model, use a screwdriver or hex wrench. The bolts were previously cross-threaded. When I opened the cover, there was an excessive amount of grease. It's unusual to see so much grease. Next, open the controller cover. There's a strong burnt smell. To disconnect the Hall sensor connector, you only need to cut the surrounding silicone. The burnt smell is significant. The motor Hall sensor terminals are sealed with silicone. In fact, this motor is not waterproof. Now, the Hall sensor connector is disconnected. Next, disconnect the 3-color phase connector. The motor emits a strong burning smell. Disconnect the pedal assist sensor connector with JST terminals. Prepare the e-bike tester. The Hall sensor seems to be fine, but let's still test it. Sure, for detailed usage instructions, please refer to the channel's video. The motor doesn't spin backward. Reattach the chainring for coil testing. Why doesn't it spin well? The top light isn't turning on. Yes, really. It's strange. It's not spinning backward properly. Are all 3 coil LEDs turning on? The LED lights are hardly visible. It's strange indeed, right? Even when turning the motor, all 3 coil phase LEDs do not light up. After using a coil tester, it's confirmed that the coils in this motor are burnt out. Let's check if the controller is burnt. You can see the MOSFET by removing the silicone. If the MOSFET is faulty, replacing it can repair the controller. Removing silicone is difficult, so it's better not to do it. Replace it with a new one. The circuit board seems to be damaged, so it's better to dispose of it. Making a BAFANG BBS motor Hall sensor tester. This is the Hall sensor connector that was cut off from the BAFANG controller. You can also buy XH 2.54mm terminals. Remove all the wire insulation. It's an automotive connector of 2.8mm size. Connect it to the e-bike tester. It's recommended to solder the terminals to prevent them from coming off easily. Now, with the completed connector, you can test the Hall sensor. Be careful about the direction. Preparation for testing is complete. The Hall sensor LED is lighting up properly. Hold the chainring and rotate it backward. All 3 LEDs light up alternately. You can test it by holding the chainring and rotating it without disassembling the motor cover. There seems to be no problem with the Hall sensor. Let's continue the repair. Here's the new controller. Controller has different types depending on the model here. This controller is type B. I expect it to work well. Why is the motor turning like this? Testing it in third gear at full power. Complete disassembly of the BBS BAFANG motor. Please use the crank arm remover to separate the crank. Always start by hand inserting the crank arm separator tool all the way. A lot of people damage the crank arm by roughly fitting it. Especially, the threads are easily damaged. Make sure to hand install the tool and insert it deeply. Please remove the first lock ring. Also, remove the second lock ring. I prefer using a hammer for this. Usually, it comes off without hitting it with a hammer. It's not separating as easily as the early models. Weird. There's water coming out from the bottom bracket and motor. A large amount of water is coming out from the bottom bracket. Could it be due to rain or high-pressure car wash? Before assembling the motor, it's a good idea to create a drainage hole below the bottom bracket using a drill. Removing motor cover bolts. Water is also coming out from the motor. This motor is not waterproof. It should open smoothly. This rust is causing a serious problem. I need to prepare the ultimate weapon. Insert the pry bar and use a hammer to create a gap. Using two prying tools at the same time works better. Let's check. Could the coil be burnt out? Look here, it turned black. There's too much corrosion. The controller got damaged due to water causing a short circuit. I accidentally burned the motor core. Buying a new one would be cheaper than repairing the entire motor now. That's why it's raining. You shouldn't ride a bike. Exactly. Let's find out what parts can be replaced officially. If you pull the wires, you can detach the motor cover. After disassembling the rubber ring, you can separate the phase wires by pushing or pulling them. When removing the motor core cover, it's easier to cut the phase connector and solder the wires together. By pulling it like this, you can separate the motor core cover. This is the rubber ring. You need to do this to open the motor cover. Keep the rubber ring stored properly. Let's start the disassembly of the bottom bracket axle and pinion gear. Prepare the snap ring pliers. While specialized tools are used, they are not necessary for this nut as it doesn't need to be tightened too much. If you tighten it too much, it will affect pedaling. This prevents the crank from rotating on its own. Two locking nuts control this adjustment.
그러면 모터가 공리전을 하지 않습니다. 샤. 흑달이 심하게 헛돌 경우는 이것을 조여주면 됩니다. 그렇죠?
The rubber seal is also damaged.
그리고 여기 하나 더 있습니다.
If the crank arm rotates on its own, just tighten this nut a little.
얘도 조여줘야 돼요.
BBS01 and 02 motors are prone to water ingress here. I've removed the axle fixing nut.
됐죠?
Now, let's look at the method for removing the bearings.
베어링이 있습니다.
For the thrust bearing in figure 3, you'll need two pieces.
또 여기에 또 안쪽에 보시면 이렇게
There's a thrust bearing on the
여기
left.
안쪽에 또 니들 베어링이 또 있습니다.
There's a needle bearing inside.
우와.
On the right,
여기 또
there are both thrust and needle
베어링이
bearings.
있습니다. 같은 대칭되는 베어링이요.
The motor's issue is excessive grease application. Don't put too much grease. Since grease doesn't move much, just coat it lightly.
으아.
After cleaning the pinion gear, apply fresh grease every 5,000 kilometers. The motor got damaged due to excessive black molybdenum grease, which penetrated into the motor core under pressure and caused damage to the plastic gear. Also, the moisture inside the motor can't escape. Ventilation is not working. Excessive grease use is prohibited. Pedal assist sensor.
그죠?
The sensor is not visible because it's covered in grease.
빼낼게요.
Let's try to separate the pedal assist sensor. This is the pause
센서인데요.
pedal assist sensor. You need to cut it when replacing. The pedal assist sensor wire passes through the cable tunnel. This is the structure where the wires pass through. After replacing the pedal assist sensor, seal the tunnel with silicone. Let's remove the pinion gear. For a complete disassembly and repair method, watch part 1 of the BBS HD repair guide. Be careful as screws can easily break. I recommend using an impact driver. Be aware that there are different versions of this cover, old and new. Here, you can detach the rubber block.
됐습니다. 우와, 그리스가
Here too, grease has been forced in. It's serious.
미치겠다.
Yes, can you see the grease? It caused serious damage. Bearing separation requires a Voss wrench socket if you have one.
됐어요? 베어링 빠졌죠?
Bearing separation is done. For installation and separation, use a tool with the same outer diameter as the bearing. How to separate the cover bearing.
됐죠? 오케이.
Let's try fitting it back again. Strike the bearing outer ring. For most bearings, you can use a socket with a similar outer diameter for installation. Bearing installation was successful.
니들 베어링 하나 있어요.
For removing the needle bearing, use a flat driver. Rotate it slightly while striking. I lost my hammer, so I'm using a spanner to hit it. Use a rubber mallet instead. Let's try fitting back the disassembled needle bearing. For
많은 사이즈
installation,
복수렌치로
use a 17mm socket Voss wrench with the same outer diameter.
우와, 바퀴 받았다.
You'll need 2 needle bearings for figure 5.
베링 되게 많아요.
You'll need 2 pieces of needle bearings shown in figure 5. For installation, use a Voss wrench socket with a similar outer diameter. The socket's outer diameter is 17 millimeters. I've completely disassembled the motor bearings.
다 빼놨어요.
Unfortunately, only grease is left.
됐고요.
The motor drowned and broke because the grease didn't dry, and moisture got trapped inside. One more left. This is the plastic nylon gear. Let's disassemble this too. If you want to separate the small pinion gear, you'll need snap ring pliers. The snap ring pliers require both closing and opening actions. Now, the separation of the small pinion gear is possible. There's a bearing here too. Let's separate the snap ring on this side too. The snap ring has been separated. Here's a video on how to disassemble the motor stator coil and hall sensor. Wrap the rotor gear with a towel, then secure it in a vise. With the towel wrapped, you can separate the rotor like this. Since it's a motor to be disposed of, I just separated it. A lot of rust has formed on the motor core. Let's also disassemble the motor core. This is the hall sensor. Push here while striking it. It comes off easily with a slight pull. For the method of hall sensor replacement, please refer to the video link. Unfortunately, the motor is too damaged. Please refer to our channel's BBS HD repair guide video. We have disassembled the cover's inner bearing using a slide hammer bearing puller. Please refer to our channel's BBS HD repair guide. We have examined the cause of the BBS02 motor malfunction and its disassembly method. For detailed motor repair methods, please refer to BBS HD Motor Repair Guide Part 1 and Part 2. We appreciate your interest in the electric bicycle master books as well. Subscribing and liking the video will greatly help us in producing more content. Thank you for watching. This was Dr. Road from Mobilant.